this meeting of the Clear Creek Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present at this time, has been duly called, and that its notice has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. And first up, so we have no community input, is that correct? No. All right. And our action item, do we have a motion?
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Second.
I move to approve the recommendation of superintendent to approve the monthly human resources report.
Thank you, Ms. Checker. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, so opposed, motion passed. All right, thank you very much. All right, and next up is our finance legislative update.
Okay, Ms. Benzai will provide an update on legislation that impacts school finance as passed by the 89th Texas Legislature.
Hey, good evening. Tonight I'm going to give you a brief presentation on school finance legislation that has passed. It's really going to focus on school finance and property taxes. It's definitely not meant to be all-inclusive. There's a lot of new legislation out there, but I wanted to pick out the most important issues that would impact us on the financial front as we go through the budget process over the next few months. Future budget meetings will go over the actual impact that each of these changes will have on our budget. House Bill 2 provides $8.5 billion in new funding, state spending on public education. $4.2 billion of that, almost half of it, is geared towards teacher and staff salary increases. Most of it is towards teacher pay increases. About $1.2 billion is to fund a basic allotment, a new basic allotment for expenses such as insurance and utilities. $2 billion is going towards special education funding, and then $430 million is new money going towards school safety. Property taxes, there are a lot of changes that are coming through on the property tax front as well, changes and exemptions. Tonight we'll look at actually 3 different bills, Senate Bill 4, House Bill 9, and Senate Bill 23, which changed the exemptions mainly for homesteads, but some other personal property exemptions as well. So as you may have heard, our basic allotment will be increasing from $6,160 to $6,215. This provides a $55 increase per average daily attendance. When the basic allotment is increased, it also generates increases in other allotments within the state funding formula, such as special education, career and technology, state compensatory education, bilingual education, and so on, because their funding weights are based on the basic allotment. I do want to mention that this is basically paid for by reallocating about $800 million in funds that were already geared to go to school districts through an increase in the guaranteed yield on our golden pennies. So that's that golden yield was set to go up this next year from $129.52 to $132.40. They brought it back down to $129.52 so that they could bump up that basic allotment. And there was, you might have seen the House and Senate had very different versions of how they would fund school districts. And so the House put more in the basic allotment, the Senate put less in the basic allotment, and they also funded that $55 from the golden penny. So that was how that worked. Over on the special education front, House Bill 2 is going to really make sweeping changes to the way they fund special education. The new allotment will be based on services provided by the district rather than the educational setting that the student is in. So those changes won't go into effect until 26-27. TEA still has to develop the system of how they'll set that program of intensity of services up. It's not ready to go yet. So the funding's available, but it won't be, we won't see that in our formulas until the second year of the biennium. There also is a reimbursement now for special education evaluation, so they're providing about $1,000. We have about 1,500 evaluations that are done every year, so you can do the math. That's about $1.5 million in additional funding there. That will go into effect for the next school year. And then there were just some minor tweaks on our college and career military readiness outcome bonus and transportation allotments for special education students. It's very minor funding changes, though. So the big topic has been the compensation package that is that goes along with House Bill 2. The teacher retention allotment, which totals about $4.2 billion annually, provides uniform pay increases for classroom teachers. In our district, with an enrollment of 5,000 or more, teachers with 5+ years of experience will see an increase of $5,000 per year, and teachers with 3 to 4 years of experience will see about $2,500 of an increase per year. There is a lot of questions surrounding how this will be administered. Many different questions. We're waiting on TEA to offer some guidance to districts. We are not sure what the definition of a classroom teacher is. It's going to be defined on who qualifies. We don't know if it's based on how they're coded under PEMS or if there's more criteria. So that's pending. TEA will determine who qualifies for these funds. And also there's a lot of questions about how we'll incorporate this into the teacher salary schedule, or will it be paid outside of the teacher salary schedule. So a lot of decisions to be made, and just don't have the guidance yet on how to do that. The state also came out with a new allotment called the Support Staff Retention Allotment, and this provides $45 per ADA for non-teachers, non-administrators. Those funds can be used. They don't tell us how to use them. They just say who you can't spend the funds on. So $45 per ADA, I think it's about $1.4 million that can be utilized for raises for those other staff. The one thing that was missing in the compensation, anytime an increase like this, which for on the teachers for CCISD, it's probably about $11.5 million to provide that $5,000 or $2,500. That comes along with a 12% increase in benefit costs, TRS costs, Medicare, things like that attach to the salary. They came late in the legislative session, added that allotment for basic costs to help provide funds for that. But that was a very significant, for CCISD, is a significant expense that comes along that was not initially funded, and that will have to come out of new dollars that the state provides for us.
Alice, I didn't want to throw you off, but going back to SPIT, that $1,000 per evaluation, is that like flat across the board, or now the students that are outside of our district that we're supposed to evaluate, is that still going to be the same? Or
so initially they had funds set aside to provide for private school students to be evaluated. That did not go through, so we would not receive funding for evaluations provided for students outside of CCISD. Okay. So the other significant allotments that were provided under this funding package is, as I mentioned before, the allotment for basic costs, not to be confused with the basic allotment. This provides amounts $106 per enrolled student to cover basic cost, and that's, as I mentioned before, something they threw in when districts were complaining about the significant amount of funding required to provide for benefits just for the salary increase proposal that was in this bill. So they did provide additional funding through this allotment for basic costs that districts can use to cover that. The school safety allotment, that this did go up. Currently, we receive $10 per ADA and $15,000 per campus. This will go up to $20 per ADA and $33,540 per campus. Not to get too much into the weeds, but they move their funding around a lot, and many of these allotments go towards building up our, you might have heard of WADA, or weighted average daily attendance, which then in turn builds up our Tier 2 allotment, which is at Golden Penny, that funds we receive from having the Golden Pennies. They've started moving things out of Tier 1, and this is a perfect example of the school safety allotment is no longer in that Tier 1, so it won't go towards building up our WADA. It's moved over into Subchapter D, which removes it from that. So we lose a little bit of money down with our Golden Penny in that WADA, even though we're receiving an increase here. So it's just something that we're starting to see that they're doing, and I'm sure they're doing it for budget purposes to try to fit all these things in. So in order to be able to afford some of these things, increases here, they have to adjust in other places. The regional insurance allotment, I'm very happy with this one because this was one of our priorities, legislative priorities, and it's been so for the past few sessions. This will provide new funding for coastal districts to pay for costs above the statewide average. So not sure of the calculations that will go into that, but it looks like it will be for Clear Creek. The estimates I'm seeing are a little bit over $4 million per year. So very happy for that. And I think that's just, was the voice that we had in requesting additional help that we have for these costs, which are much higher than other parts, districts in other parts of the state. The districts that are on the Gulf Coast will benefit from this. And then early education allotment, sometimes, and I didn't mention it before, you might see little red question marks by things. It's because there's still a lot of questions on how this will be implemented, but this is definitely one of these. So a few years ago, the state mandated the full day pre-K. They continue to only provide for half-day funding for pre-K. However, that same year, they created an early education allotment, which is calculated a little different, but they said, well, you can use those funds to help cover the cost of going to full day pre-K. So they've modified this allotment this go-round. And they have created actually a smaller allotment for all of the K through 3 students, but most of that funding will be needed because they are requiring now new math academies. You might have remember the reading academies, so now there's new math academies that will be required for K through 8 teachers to improve student numeracy. So we will need to have to pay stipends or subs. However, we roll that out to make sure that our staff receive those academies. So that funding can go to cover that. They are doing some changes to the allotment as far as funding of half-day pre-K to cover the other part. So districts with the reallocation of these funds, districts can either gain or lose money. I'm concerned that we're actually going to lose money with the changes in this allotment based on the way that TEA will change around the formula for that. So it's sort of that's why I have a big question mark by it. It's pending, and we'll see how that pans out. Pre-kindergarten, so children of classroom teachers will be eligible for state-funded half-day pre-K. Currently, we have about 63 of those that we charge tuition for because they've not qualified for pre-K. So this new change will make them eligible. And starting in 27-28, and you'll see another big question mark here, new full-day pre-K programs must receive approval from pre-K intermediaries, and charging tuition for ineligible students would need to be approved by the intermediary. So the state is going to create, I think, 4 intermediaries throughout throughout the state, and they will make these evaluations to determine if there's a private pre-K program available that these students could take advantage of, and then I think encourage districts to partner with these private providers, and therefore we would have to share 85% of the revenue that are generated by students with the private provider. So not sure how that's going to roll out. That's another big question mark. We've been trying to expand our tuition program in pre-K, but I'm just not sure what the impact will be with this change. There is a new teacher preparation and incentive allotment. Again, I can't get too much in the weeds. This is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but there are funds that will be available to provide for teacher preparation and certification programs. It will cover student teachers in classroom training and fund grow your own programs. There's various things that are attached. I won't go through all of those, but again, it's one of those we'll have to wait and see how it rolls out and get some guidance from TEA to determine the impact that it will have. But they are trying to help fill the hole, the shortage of teachers, and so this is directing funds to try to help with those causes. Another question mark, we have a new allotment called the Early Literacy Intervention Allotment, and this will actually create a series of literacy and numeracy assessments to be administered in kindergarten through third grade. Students that fail 2 consecutive assessments must be provided intervention supports by the district. So this would provide $250 for students receiving those interventions. And then students that continue to fail these assessments may be eligible for a $400 account to use on private tutoring services. So we, in turn, school districts could see a corresponding funding reduction beginning in 2030, 2031, in the event that there's failure of those assessments and those accounts are funded. So these are the other finance-related bills that we have out there that I mentioned before, the tax-related bills. We have Senate Bill 4, which will increase the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000. And they will provide hold harmless funding in our interest and sinking fund for debt issued and paid prior to September 1st, 2025. So we have $162 million in outstanding or authorized debt from our voters from the 2023 bonds that we have set up to go ahead and sell possibly this summer. The board approved that parameter order last month. And so that if those bonds are sold, if that debt is issued before September 1st and a payment is made on those, then those funds, that debt would be eligible for hold harmless funding, which can be, I would estimate, 5 to 7% of the annual debt payments for the life of the bonds, or as long as the state continues to provide the hold harmless funding. So that is a significant amount of money, and if we're planning to issue the bulk of those in January of this coming year, bringing it up a little bit by 4 months is definitely something that we want to consider to do so that we don't lose out on that additional funding and possibly have to raise our tax rate to try to cover the loss in taxes, because this going from $100,000 to $140,000 on that homestead does significantly reduce our tax base. And on the maintenance side of the house, the state holds us harmless through the funding formulas, but on the other side with interest and sinking, it is based on when you issue your debt. Another tax bill, House Bill 9, will increase the business personal property exemption from $2,500 to $125,000. And then the Senate Bill 23 increases the homestead exemption for persons age 65 or over or disabled, $10,000 to $60,000. So those will be November constitutional amendments on the ballot that you will see going forward. So as we move forward through the budget process over the next couple months, We'll start to see the budget impact that these changes in school funding have made. We'll see an impact on our compensation plan because we'll have to incorporate, the 2,500 of our employees received this retention allotment, and how will we handle, how will we incorporate that into our salary schedules, and how will we impact the compensation of the other employees. And then also as I mentioned, the tax impact on our interest and sinking fund. How will all of those changes impact our debt service when we sell bonds? And could it possibly have an impact on our tax rate on the INS side as well? So all of those things are major decisions coming forward as we go through the budget process. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Benzai. All right. Does anybody follow up with any questions or comments?
I have to ask. First of all, this is a lot of really good information. I appreciate you pulling it together for us. And I know it's a little early because there's still a whole lot of budget stuff that you need to do to really kind of put this in perspective. But can you give us a sort of a very high level estimate of what all these changes do to our bottom line, both in terms of revenue and expenses?
So and you'll see it broken down in future meetings, but it looks like new funding for Clear Creek is ranging from $23 to $25 million total, of which about $12.5 million will go towards a teacher and staff increases, another $1.5 million for the benefits on that. So the net of those is running around 10 to 12 million based on what I'm estimating right now. So it's definitely not what I was hoping for. There was a big variance between how the House plan looked with what the Senate plan looked. The House had a larger basic allotment increase, and they also gave more flexibility to districts on how to utilize the funds. They, required 40% of the funds be used on salary increases, or a few more details with that. The Senate version is very direct. They're they're defining how they want the state funds spent, and that's really something we've seen from the past legislative session. They are not giving school districts funds to determine and letting school districts determine how they want to spend it. They are giving us funds and telling us how to utilize the funds. There are some funding we can use how we need to, but that's really the direction they're going in, is they're defining how they want the funds spent.
And again, it's kind of early, but do those constraints, is there any particular areas where those constraints affect us significantly, specifically Clear Creek?
Well, I think the issue that Creek has, as well as other districts in the state, is that we haven't seen large funding increases.
Yeah.
Our inflation's gone up. It's just a bottom line that we have these expenses that have continued to increase, and their fuel or insurance, across the board, just expenses have risen. And so is $10 to $12 million enough for that? I mean, it's on a $400 million budget with expenses continuing to rise. It's very difficult. The salary retention allotment is going to pose its own set of challenges to just determine how really to implement that. We're going to have to make decisions quick because we have to adopt a budget, but we really have to understand how to roll that out. We also have challenges with our health insurance. The rates came out last week, so there's increases there for our staff. So it's just an overall, revenue and expenditure issue, and is that enough enough to cover us for 2 years? That's the question.
Well, you can look at that basic allotment increase and you can beat that against what everybody knows inflation has been. And you can see that that would be a problem. I guess I'm just concerned that I realize our big problem is, how do we fit 20 pounds into a 10-pound sack? But I was just wondering if there were any pockets in that sack that this specific legislation created that make things more challenging than just simply addressing a shortfall. And
Yeah, I think, some of the allotments that they've created and the changes that they've made, really, there's more information that's needed on some of those
Fair.
to see what the impact's going to be. But for instance, the early education allotment, I'm concerned that we might actually have less money with that, with the changes they're making. So, we run everything through our financial models, and I just got those today. So we're starting to put the data in and see what it looks like. The other challenge that we'll have is really the impact of the changes to the taxes, because the property taxes we have to go through. We have a lot of homesteads and we have a lot of over 65s in our school district, and all of those get recalculated anytime there's tax compression or an increase in the homestead. We have to go back and look at all of those, or our tax office has to go look at all of those frozen accounts and recalculate them. And so we lose funding through that we hope will come out and be held harmless on the other side. It never works exactly. So, when you're approving a budget, I don't know what the impact of this is going to have on those freeze accounts. We currently get about a $7 million payment every year from the previous hold harmless when they went from 40,000 to 100,000, and we had to recalculate all of those freeze accounts. Our freeze loss on the levies on those increased quite a bit, and so there's just a lot of moving parts with the budget, and it's getting increasingly difficult to plan and estimate some of these items, but we'll figure it out.
we certainly appreciate the hard work you put into this so far, and I guess we look forward to working with you to deal with these challenges throughout the school year. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Mr. President. Ms. Benza, I think today, most of the public or community that's followed the legislative session is hearing the $8.5 billion number towards public education. I think that's the headline that's getting a lot of attention. And without really understanding the details of how that breaks out per school district, and specifically our school district, I think our challenge is going to be, how do we provide this information so that by the numbers our community understands how that translates here in CCISD. The likelihood at some point that the story is not as positive as we're looking at today, the sooner that we can connect those two, it feels the better off we'll be. Otherwise, it will look as though we're sharing information that's disconnected from what's already been provided to the community. And so I think for our ability to gain community support, teacher support, staff support, businesses, entities that have a vested interest in our community, for them to understand that how the session ended is not what should have been expected of a state that has a surplus budget. I think we have a responsibility to then create what that means here in CCISD. At some point, we'll go back to the community and we'll have to ask for their support for a bond. At some point, we may have to go back out and ask for another voter approval tax rate election. And if the things that are happening behind the scenes is the only thing the community hears, then there's a disconnect when we ask for their support and their belief or perception that we are operating in a way that's not transparent and that's not being judicious with the funds that we get. And so I think lots of people have concerns and had reservations about what might happen. I think now it's really on us to show this is really, by the numbers, this is really what has happened. Because that 8.5 looks very different here on the ground. I look forward to helping tell that story because I think that is really critical for people to understand why we need their support and why the next session has to look different. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Does anybody else have anything on that? All right, so I'll just kind of follow up on Trustee Sanchez's comments. My notes are like a roller coaster because I'm sitting here following your presentation where it's like, well, this is good, and this is not so good, and this is good, and that's not so good. And ultimately, I put in quotes, big question mark, because, we don't know, what that's really going to look like for our district. We're going to have more meetings, more conversations, and hopefully have more answers so that, when we go out to the community, we can let them know that, things that we have been advocating for fell flat or didn't work out the way we had expected. So, but I do appreciate it. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? All right. Thank you, Ms. Benzai. Open enrollment update.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dr. Sharon Lopez and Executive Director for Secondary, and Monica Jeffrey, Director of Instructional Design, will provide an update of FDA regulation that was adopted by the board back in March, and just going to tell you where we are with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. So Dr. Lopez and I are here to give both a current and future process for students and families who want to attend a CCISD school that live outside of our boundaries. This has been, as we've learned more, it's been called lots of different things out in the community. So it's called open enrollment, it's referred to as the vouchers. So for clarity purposes, we're going to call it out-of-district transfers because we're going to pair it up with our current transfer process. So as of now, we have both an in-district transfer process for those families that live within the boundary and want to attend a school other than their home campus. And now we have an out-of-district transfer process for families that live outside of CCISD's zone and want to request a transfer into the district to a campus. So when this opportunity presented itself, our budget and staffing meetings at the campus level had already occurred. And Alice and her team had already met and made staffing decisions based on current student enrollment. And so they did that quite tightly so that most of our classes are as full as they can be, and we are staffed that way. So that's why we're going to present two different processes. We have one to get us through right now because that had already occurred, and so that limits some things that we can do. And then we have a more robust plan that Dr. Lopez will talk about. So our goal for right now, for the 25-26 school year, is to fill open student seats that we have using our current campus staffing allotment. So now for all types of transfers, both in district and out of district, the transfer criteria are the same. And we just wanted to touch on those. First, families must submit an online transfer application that's completed, which means they also upload documents that prove that they are currently in good standing at their campus for attendance, behavior, and academics. And then also we look at the current space and staff available so that we're not accidentally pushing classes over that healthy student to teacher ratio. So our process for the 25-26 school year, we first met with Dustin Harden's team and looked at our existing transfer application form and he helped us add a new box where you could choose out-of-district transfer as an option. So as soon as that was completed, then Elena Polson and her team had been collecting interest forms from families who were calling or expressing interest in an out-of-district transfer. She immediately pushed that information out to those people, and we began to see the out-of-district transfers coming in. So we knew that that process was working. She also added it to the district's website so that we had a clear process out there for families who were interested. Then on June 5th, Holly Hughes and Franklin Moses did a great job with campus principals, getting them to go ahead and approve or deny any inter-district transfers and employee transfers and those types of things to get those closed, so we had a good idea of what our numbers were at campuses before principals left for their summer break. And then between now and when principals come back, we created a district enrollment team, which is Dr. Lopez, myself, Ms. Hughes, Mr. Franklin, and Jennifer Garcia, who runs our parent assistance line and helps support families. We will be monitoring those out-of-district transfers and any applications that come in that are not fully completed or do not meet criteria. We'll go ahead and deny those so those families are aware. And then when principals come back, what they will see in their queue are students who meet criteria, so that campus principals can then make those final decisions based on the space and the staff that they have at their campus. So our plan is to close the out-of-district transfer window on July the 3rd. That gives us time to start going through those, cleaning it up, and getting it ready for principals to come back. They come back on July 14th. And then we can make those decisions along with the campus principals to get all transfer requests in the queue processed by July 25th, so that those families that did meet criteria and we have space for them, they can go ahead and enroll by August 1st when that enrollment window opens.
And I know the 3rd is a holiday. It's a school holiday, so would those be kept in the queue until following Monday?
Yes.
or
Yes,
start of
so when
okay.
they complete their application, it time and date stamps them. And
Okay.
so they can still do it that day and we would receive it.
Gotcha.
We would just
Okay.
process it that following week.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and that'll be the day we take that link off of the website, and then we put in a link to gather families that are interested for the following year. So we will start gathering, we will have a form that they can fill out to gauge interest, and then when we release our new process, then we'll send them emails to let them know that we have a new process. So our process for 2026 and beyond, we're working with Dustin in technology in Skyward SDS, our IMS department, to help us figure out what this process is going to look like 2026 and beyond. I gotta push this button. So this is the timeline for next year, and this is all in draft because we're still making the plan right now. So October through November, we hope to be ready. We will be ready with our plan more solidified, and we will push out information about what it will look like for next year and beyond, because the plan will look different because we're going to be using School Mint to help organize it. This year we're using our old transfer application process, so the process has been a little bit different because we're using that old form, but we're going to update it with School Mint and technology, and IMS is helping us with that process and tying it into Skyward. So October through November, we'll do some advertising about what it is, push the application out. Applications will open December 1st, and then application process will be open. The window will be December 1st through January 23rd, and then that will give people plenty of time to apply. And then from January 23rd through April 10th is when the whole process of principals will be looking at applications, figuring out who has the appropriate attendance, discipline, and then we will also be looking at our staffing at that time. Our staffing window happens right around after spring break, and so we will take that into consideration. And then April 10th, after staffing, we will figure out who is accepted. We will push those out, and then May 1st, the families will need to confirm their seats, get enrolled. Then we will make sure we have a clear picture of how many students we have, and then we can also push it out again in May 15th for any open seats that we have left, so that there is a continuing process of open enrollment for any seats that are still available. Because with School Mint, the beauty of that program is that it will be able to show what schools still have availability even after staffing. So we're working with Dustin and team on organizing that and making sure that it is very clear and there's clarity in the process and clarity with our principals on the selection criteria, and that it's able to be out front for the public to see what's available. So that will be a process.
So the goal will be to populate the application dynamically with only those schools that have availability.
Yes.
Not this year, but next.
But next year, yes.
Okay.
And looking at the process is right now we have schools that are maxed out. And so those schools, they will not be able to they won't be available for people to apply for because their spacing is limited. But staffing, if there's room for us to perhaps hire more teachers or more appropriately staff and bring more students to the campus, then we want to be able to do that. But we also need to be open and say, some of these schools they're maxed out and they can't have any more students in the building. So we want to be clear with that and make sure that that's transparent for everybody.
And Dr. Lopez, I think I saw in our Friday packet that it said that there were going to be 2 high schools that were going to be, I guess, maybe available. Is that correct?
I don't think I'll let you speak to that.
I mean, Clearview's always an opportunity
Yes.
there.
Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that it was, because I was
Yes.
thinking View and Brook.
Possibly Brooke.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We probably haven't named that completely yet, but
Right,
yes, as they
right.
go through and look. But definitely Clearview
Yeah.
and.
Great minds think alike. 'Cause that's exactly what I was thinking about.
And then look at the availability and some others, so, and then looking at transferring within the district and coming
Right.
outside. So there's some of those, so things to work out with the high school piece.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yes.
And I just want to say that thank you to Dustin and technology, because he's really helped us using the different programs that are able to pull in data. And so the next slide is.
I just wanted to piggyback off that, Dr. Lopez,
Oh, yes,
just
sir.
the work that was done during election time, leading up to now, and even actually before election time when you were working on the dashboard and things like that. I think when we expressed, that we wanted families to be able to go to the website, look at what's available before they even applied, et cetera. Just ahead of time, I know it's ongoing, but thank you for what you're doing and your department's doing as well, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's able to give us a lot of data, and then he'll be able to help connect that with School Mint once we get that program set up and working. We also created an FAQ that we can put out. We're gonna put that out on the website, just to give you a couple key questions. Who's eligible? Any student that lives outside of CCISD boundaries. Of course, academics, attendance, behavior, staffing, and space is going to be, those are going to be the applicant's requirements, and we're going to look at that. And then if my child is accepted, can they stay in CCISD through graduation? That was a big question, because Jennifer Garza, our parent assistance clerk, she also takes data from all the questions that she gets from answering the phones. She keeps a lot of data for us, and so she gave us a lot of questions that she continues to hear. And so a lot of people are asking if their child will be able to stay through graduation, because it is concerning if you're coming from out of district, if you're going to be able to stay consecutive years. And so we just said that we're going to honor that history. However, all transfer students must meet annual eligibility criteria, of course, academics, attendance, and behavior. But with each year, they have to reapply. There's going to be an application window, and everybody has to apply each year. So that's important. And then transportation, of course, there's no transportation provided for out-of-district transfers. So that was an important question as well. So we'll have those FAQs out on the website as well, and those are linked in the presentation. And then the last slide is just data that Dustin was able to provide for us. I just wanted to show you, since we put the form out on May 23rd, the non-resident out-of-district number right now is 59. That's how many students have applied since we put it out on May 23rd. But that's all the applications for transferring. You can look at the different numbers. We are going to change the name. Instead of intra-district, we're going to say in-district and out-of-district, just so it's not as confusing, it's more clear. So you won't see that intra-district starting next year, but since we had to use the old form, it comes up as intra-district, but that's in-district. So questions?
Thank you all. Any questions, comments? Open it up. No?
I just wanted to mention that this appears to be working as intended, and we appreciate, again, the good work that's gone into this, and looking forward to success the next year.
Thank you, Commissioner Larson. Anyone else?
I was going to ask, do you all know, and I apologize if this was in a packet and I don't remember the number, based on the units and classes that we already had opportunities to bring students into, do you know what the total number is that we could accept this next school year? Total number of students?
It's really big.
It looks different for secondary and elementary.
We can get that to you. Honestly, we're just closing up transfers as of finishing some today. So I think we'll have that. We can give you that cumulative. We're trying to get in as many as we can before we push out that open.
Because I know that secondary schedule's like critical by June or July.
Wasn't this just K-5 though?
No.
Isn't that what we?
Yeah, no, not, we had originally talked about that, but we're exploring more opportunities.
So the 30 so from the new policy right now, we're looking at 37 pending from the new policy change. So
That's
do
right.
we know the
For
breakdown on
out-of-district.
how many of those are elementary versus
Majority
secondary?
elementary.
What?
Majority elementary.
Yes.
Just I'm looking at my queue. I can see.
But we don't want to limit, as we have maybe some of our secondary schools that are available, then looking at those possibilities.
But we are already going through the applications that are in the system, and if the applications are not complete, then we're denying them. But if they are complete, then we're getting with the principals to look at the numbers and they can make those decisions.
Any other comments? All right, so I had a few. One is, so if a family applies for one elementary school that's already maxed out, but we have a lot of elementary schools that are in proximity, are they afforded the opportunity to apply at the other school if it's nearby, or we have space?
Currently they have a drop-down menu where they can choose a school, or they can also leave it open to any. We are keeping, if it's denied for that school, that's something we can look at. If there's somebody in a neighboring school, we could possibly call them and say, we don't have one here, but we have one over here if they're interested.
Yeah. I would encourage that, in order for us to, the spirit of the policy that we put out and the rest is more just comments about, where we were, we passed a policy, and now we sit back and see how it works, right? Obviously with technology and Mr. Harden's help, eventually we'll be able to go through this process online, and hopefully Mr. Moses and Ms. Hughes don't have quite the stacks of papers to hold up and, review for everybody, but trust the process. Let's see if it works, and then, of course, correct from there. And so, while we kind of go through this, it's a learning curve for everybody. But, to remind the families too, if we can't get them in here, we can try to get them in here. That's really the goal, is to fill those empty seats in the district and be mindful of that right size. The goal is, what size district do we want to be? And, let's make sure that we're right size for staff and everything as well.
One more. This is a great example of you guys working nimbly and quickly. And I think we're moving at a pace that we've never moved at before. We saw it with the creation of Launch. We're seeing it with this. So that is appreciated, that we're not sitting on something, that we're trying to address a critical problem, and we're doing it. We're meeting that challenge head on, and we're doing it quickly and efficiently. So thank you very much.
Thank you for adding that. All right.
Can I follow up on that too? I do want to thank this team, our district enrollment team that just got a little bit bigger here over the last month. And so, we do appreciate that. And Mr. Hardy's team has been working very hard, but it truly is just kind of coming out with some of these FAQs. We've got the staffing that we're moving, and then we'll see as we adjust and go. So do really appreciate that. And y'all's guidance all the way through. So I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Dustin. All right. No other comments? All right. So end of year metrics, cadence report.
Thank you. And so what we're getting ready to shift a little bit right now, cabinet members will provide the Board of Trustees with an end of year update on our board approved 24-25 goals as they relate to Vision 2030, our strategic plan.
Yeah, I'll just mention to the trustees, if you could kind of hold questions so we can get through it. There's a lot of information to kind of go through, so maybe make a note, and then once they're done, kind of jump in.
Okay, thank you. President Cottrell, that we will go ahead and we're gonna, if you're okay, we're gonna ping pong a little bit. We'll have different people kind of sharing bits of information. The goals document, and you do have in front of you, if you can take a look at this, this is the goals document. And if you look, we have a number of these goals and a number of these strategies that we have already completed. And so as we go through this, we'll do goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, but you can look at this. There will be some things that we've already talked about and we're not going to go back over, but you can just see the check mark. But then if you have any questions or there's anything that you would like us to update on that, we're just elevating some of the most recent data, but we're here to answer questions about anything that's here. But we'll just wanted to give you that right there as a reference guide, and then we'll go through the presentation. And I do want to thank Ms. Dee Cardenas for joining us. She is taking Ms. Polson's place today, who is on vacation to visit her son overseas. So, but she did prepare this presentation for us. So we're very grateful for Ms. Polson, and now Ms. Dee Cardenas will be running it for us. And as we move through, we'll just go through everything and then answer any questions that you have. All right, so we will get started, and as always, we start with our vision, empowering every student with a world-class education that ignites passions and fuels endeavors. And our first goal, students and staff will thrive in a secure environment built on connections and community and become resilient leaders. And I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Miller and Dr. Solomons.
Okay, so item 1.1 is strengthen district-wide systems to ensure a safe environment. The first item on there is to identify and correct safety vulnerabilities using the TEA's vulnerability assessment criteria. There are about 84 of those criteria. So Cameron and his team went through, and we are, of the 27 campus level criteria, we're 100% compliant currently. There's 57 district level criteria. We're 70% compliant on those, which is about 40 items. 21% are partially compliant, need a few tweaks, and 9%, 5 items, are non-compliant. So most of the identified areas are the training that we do every summer that we need to document better. It's not that we don't provide the training, we just need to have a central place to document that training. And so we'll be completing that over the summer, this coming summer, and then documented policies and procedures of duties that are already being done. We just need it documented and kept in a central location. So we'll be working on that, and all of those items will be corrected prior to the start of the 25-26 school year. And then record storage and retention is a big part of that. So all of those non-compliant items will be completed prior to the start of school. The next item was to develop a framework for a centralized safety vulnerability prevention system. Cameron and his exploration team has been hard at work over the last 8 months. His team included Alex Aragon, our Director of Facility Services, Arturo Gonzalez, Director of Network and Technical Services, Dr. Hopper, the Clear Falls Associate Principal, Cameron, of course, our Emergency Management Coordinator, Jeff Prince, Creekside Intermediate Assistant Principal, and Paulina Rodriguez, the McWhirter Assistant Principal. So they all work together, working out that framework. They settled on utilizing our existing learning management system, Canvas, to operate this, to make sure that it was something that campuses were used to, and it wouldn't cost a large amount of money to implement. Access will be real easy to maintain. And then we're going to house all the safety related information in there and standards and sectioned off. It'll be customized by each campus, so everybody at that campus will have access to their campus documents within that system. And we will definitely include a reporting tool to allow campus staff to report general vulnerability, things that they see at their campus, straight to Safe Schools using this system. And did you want me to jump to the security committee? So I'm going to jump to the next section. We had one for our area to expand school safety and security committee to improve campus and community engagement. That was done last fall, and all of the meetings that we held over the current year included the expanded committee. It included administrators from campuses, some of our district leadership. We added an additional parent. Total, we went from 18 to 29 members for the current committee. So it did definitely increased our real world knowledge and helped us really focus in on what we needed to accomplish.
All right, and the next, my two are establish benchmark data on the number of students served at our special ed behavioral support center, and then teacher satisfaction in behavior supports. And just to remind everyone, the BSC was established in nimble response to the limited availability of the non-public day schools at the beginning of the 24-25 school year, because TEA had some ongoing monitoring of these facilities. But those have come back online now, and due to the increase in campus behavioral supports needed and the needs of students eligible, the decision was made to place more of our supports back on the campuses and use those MPDs that are now once again open. But for this metric, we serviced the 7 students, 3 in grade 5, 2 grade 3, and 1 grade 1, and then 1 ended up in a non-public day that was enrolled in our BSC. So 5 have had ARD meetings at the end of this school year to be placed back on their home campuses, so we're very proud of that, and they will begin the year in self-contained behavior classes with support. 2 of those 7 are going back to our non-public day. All right, and then the other part is teacher satisfaction and student behavior. We reported this earlier this year. It's the next slide. This was part of our CCISD performance survey, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a later slide, but 82% of our teachers say that they receive the behavior support and training they need, and 9 out of 10 parents agree with the statement, "My student's school is a safe place to learn." The next slide. All right, so this is Ms. Hughes and me. The first one, provide professional learning opportunities based on our 6 CCISD leadership beliefs. We're proud to say over 180 participants were involved in different avenues of leadership growth. We had over 75 attending our AP Academy. We had an external team into learning. We had 10 outstanding assistant principals who attend, 2 of which have been named principals, so we're super proud of that. And our Leadership Academy that was provided consisted of principals, assistant principals, teachers, coaches, even a crossing guard. So we were really, really proud of the growth opportunities provided this year for our aspiring leaders.
Okay, and our leadership opportunities continue to expand across the district this past year, and as Ms. Jufrey just left, but she's been hard at work expanding these opportunities for kids. I know you've seen them in action, but Clear Lake City, Parr, and Ross became year ones for us this year, and provided outstanding opportunities for kids in the program. And our 7 habits have been incorporated into our weekly meetings twice a week across all campuses. And then we had 3 campuses that recertified for that Lighthouse certification. I know you visited them probably this year: Space Center, Armand Bayou, and Falcon Pass, and anticipate more to go for that certification in the upcoming year, but we're staying focused on this year. And then we have a plan for all elementary schools by 2030 to go through the foundational skills and to have the basic level of training for Leader in Me, so that every school, every student will be have that opportunity. That's going to be a plan that's in action so that we can build that out. But based on the support from our Education Foundation, grant funds from there, as well as the Current Foundation and some others that we've received in partnership with Franklin Covey, we are going to be able to continue to do that without additional expense to the district. So really proud of that work, and certainly Ms. Jufrey's leadership in that as well. So we continue to deepen the leadership opportunities for our students and for them to continue to lead our events, as you've seen this year.
All right, and looking at slide 8, this metric 1.2 included maintaining or improving our CCISD employee turnover rate of 15%. Of course, in 2023-24, we're at 10%. We currently do not have that number. We will have that updated for July, which is our year end once all teachers have resigned by that time. Given what you will hear in the upcoming slides by Dr. Engel with the Intergage Workplace Survey, we do believe that we will be holding to that 10% or turnover, given the satisfaction that we're hearing from our staff.
And then we gave an Intergage survey, which is an external company survey, just our teachers, just our teaching staff. And I want to share some of that data just to refresh your memory. So this first slide is May 22. Red is not good, green is good. And so just as a little visual there and some of the words, keep on going. And this was our, and we have given this Intergage survey over the past, and this was the past 8 years, and it showed a dramatic decline in 22, and it showed that real fall off. So just to kind of that visual. And then moving on, in 24 last year, we had increased that overall workplace experience score by 3 points, which we were very proud of that, and to continue to change that trajectory to move in the positive. And I did want to mention one thing. I think there was a maybe I'm missing out, but there was a metric that so many of our 60% of our staff said they were looking for another job, kind of going back a few years ago. Yeah, we all remember. So anyway, so that was, it's in here somewhere, but just this overall, that increase. And then we're proud to share that in May 2025, we just got the scores back. It's at 67%. It increased another 7%. So over the last 3 years, we've gone up 10 points, which is a dramatic increase. And if you can note right there, we are now 5 points above the benchmark, which is an industry benchmark of education institutions, public schools in our area. We were below the benchmark 3 years ago, and now it's gone to 5 points above. And we're just, there was really, we'll get more data. Ms. Polson has all of it. We have to sit down and pay a little bit, and we'll get all the information. We'll share that with you once we get all the information, but we get this preliminary data at first. And so just to kind of share that with you, we were very excited, and kind of just a couple other things under the statements were the biggest increases. My pay is fair for the work. And we haven't done a dramatic increase in pay, but it's that appreciation that the employees feel at their campus, in their department. It's all about the leadership in our school district, and that they're whatever facility and whatever organization they're in, that they're feeling supported. 11% went up well-being for Creek Independent School District. Does a great job of prioritizing employee well-being. Include in, I feel well informed about important decisions in Clear Creek ISD. So those were dramatic increases. Those were statements with the biggest increase, which is obviously what we've been working on. And that then goes right back to those campuses and those departments, and they're feeling that support. And so then we have a final word cloud that doesn't have so much red. So anyway, just a color-coded, but that just kind of shares with you some of the support there. So that, and we will have more information on some of the stats as we get that. And I would like to really attribute this final slide on this and thinking about, because this first goal, that cultural belonging and making sure that our staff feel like they're supported. So all of cabinet, we all went back out again and we did our listen learn sessions and brought back all the information. And these are just a couple of pieces that we have either we're implementing or we will be implementing. And I'll just do a few highlights. They wanted 2 days for professional learning when they come back to school, or 2 days of time down in the classroom. So we're really giving them more time to do what they need to do and less structured time from us, and that's a guarantee. Reducing district professional learning outside of their day so they can spend more time in the classroom. But we know how important professional learning is, so we have to temper that with giving them what they need but not pulling too much. Customizing annual staff. We have professional learning at the beginning of the year. We've got a new system vector that will go into effect now, which will customize what they need, so every employee doesn't get every single piece of professional learning. And we can share more about that. Exchange professional days have been a huge hit. We keep on going with that. Continue those behavior supports. You saw some of the information there. Special education and student behavior, we still need professional learning there, and that is on the books. That is ongoing. Those are some things that we're doing. We'll have a stipend structure review this summer, as we do every summer. Explore bereavement options. I wanted to take one moment there. That was something that came up at several campuses. And so we went back. Would you mind just sharing just a minute about what we did?
Absolutely. Layla, myself, and Alice also, we took a deep dive of our current policy, leave structures that exist. We were able to determine that actually Clear Creek ISD is much more generous with leave options, including bereavement, than many of our peer districts. So that was satisfying to see, in knowing that we'd already met that mark that staff were saying that we needed to take a look at. And so it did inform us, though, that we need to do a better job of communicating the options that are available. And so that's what we'll be working on.
So, but these were all, as they came up, we did a deep dive. Let's see what we could do to adjust to that. And just a couple other things. Our pre-Ks, they didn't want to go all day. So they're not.
The pictures are so cute.
They are so cute. They're probably still asleep. They're still going to be cute. Yeah, that was
long first week for them.
yeah. So we listened and responded. That's fine. And then our secondary, they're like, yeah, they're fine. We're good. We're okay. So they're going to keep their regular day. Visitor sign-in process. I know Mr. Miller's team's worked very hard. We're going to have a new sign-in process for our employees that go to campuses, maintenance, operations, that they don't have to go right through the front office.
Right. Yeah, we're going to utilize our badging system. Dustin already left, but Dustin's been so Dustin's been helping us on that to really define what that needs to be. We're working through some of the details of that system and what its capability will be, but we'll be also doing, I think, visitors for any staff members at the front office and also anywhere that we establish that needs to happen. It'll really make our maintenance guys a lot more efficient, not having to go through the office every time they need to fix something.
As long as they shut the door, make sure it's locked.
That's a separate issue.
You
You are right.
Yeah. But so these are some things that are new. A lot of things that we've been doing, like exchange days, we're hearing Strong's EP, we're doing it, so, but it's great to hear that feedback too, that affirmation. Corporate partnerships, we keep working on those. We have more corporate partnerships. We continue to add to that. CCISD Connect, Parent Square, a lot of good support on that and just training for our staff, and continue to improve through responsive communication, to continue to get out there and listen and respond. We share this information with our leadership and with our staff and say, hey, this is what we heard and this is what we're doing. So just to kind of give that's a briefing. I know we could go do a deep dive in all of those, but just wanted to give you an overview of that. So now we'll go to goal 2, and this is each student will engage in world-class learning experiences that foster curiosity, develop talents, guide exploration, and fuel achievement. And kind of in looking at the big picture, Dr. Silva is going to share a lot of things that we did over this past year to kind of help towards this goal.
Absolutely. And I want to start by saying the teachers did very much the heavy lifting of this goal. And so we set the goal of 85 in actually 2023. So we had a 2-year goal for this. And that we have been working on the development of PLCs over the last several years and refinement of that. And the real benefit of having the PLC is that it raises the teacher efficacy. And so collectively, they are better able to support the students. So strategic work really has been done by teachers with the support of instructional coaches and campus leaders, obviously, as well. But teachers getting real clarity on the success criteria of the standards. What that means is, what do we want the student to be able to do? What is it? Identifying deeply, so they have a deep understanding of it, so when they see it and give students the opportunity to learn, then they can say yes, they know how to do it, or no, I need to do something to help them. The PLC also does a lot of work with the use of data. You see several data pieces here that we've used throughout this year, the interim, the TTAP, as well as common assessments that the teachers develop in their PLC, and then district assessments that we develop and have a lens throughout the district to see. But they use those various data sources to triangulate data, first of all, but also to provide and decide who will need interventions and who might need extensions. If they already know, how are we moving them forward to continue to deepen their learning? So that is all of the work of the PLC that's really instrumental, and that, of course, is the teachers doing that very difficult work. The campuses were supported from district leaders in the form of various ways. First, professional learning. Dr. Engel mentioned how much we value that, and that really helps teachers grow as leaders. We also had Administrator Connects with the assessment department. We have Administrator Connects with the curriculum department. We have Administrator Connects with the special education department. So they get quick updates often a lunch and learn or lunchtime. When they get to log in, these are teams, easy to get on and very well attended. So those help the principals know what is it that I'm looking for, how should I be supporting my teachers, what questions might I be able to ask them. And then of course we visit campuses quite regularly too for learning walks, where we might walk with a principal or a coach or both and talk about the instruction in the classroom. And all of these things just help us replicate best practices, right? We see we take groups, groups of people on learning walks, small groups of people on learning walks, so that they can see what it looks like in an algebra class at this school, and then go to their algebra class at their school and see what might be different or how they might be able to tweak it to make it better. Finally, I'll say too, that we had a focus this year on quadrant one of the probable learner, which is to create critical thinkers, creators and critical thinkers. So we did some deep work with that. You see that as the final bullet there on the list, where with the intention of trying to impact our meets and our master's scores. So we were looking at that higher order thinking, and we did a deep dive into Bloom's taxonomy, which we all learned about when we went to college long ago, but just how those levels of Bloom's can deepen and targeted can deepen learning for students. We also had a professional learning focus on depth and complexity, which is uses icons. It used to be primarily for gifted and talented teachers, but now we are actually training up lots of different groups of teachers with depth and complexity to be able to use perspective and icons to help students see things from different lenses and think through things in different lenses and that type of thing. So that's caused us to be able to open up more opportunities for students to think differently and critically. So those have all led to just some of the things that we've done to support continued development and student growth. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Henley, who's got some numbers.
I get the pleasure of giving you some of the impact from the data that we collected on Amplify first, and then high priority learning standards, and then just a quick brief STAR update. The first, Amplify, our goal was to hit 75% in both K1 and 2, and you will see by the end of the year, we met that target, exceeded it in kindergarten and grade 1, and then hit it right there at grade 2, but that is an increase from the previous year's group 2. So very excited to see that work. And then we get to talk about our improved cohort growth in our HPLS. Those are those high priority learning standards that the PLCs identified, and we tracked throughout the course of the year through beginning of the year assessment, first teach and reteach. And you will see pretty much the difference from the first teach. Our kids retained, not only did they learn it, but they retained it consistently and improved in areas. You'll look at high school specifically, and that intermediate science and intermediate RLA growth. So pretty exciting work, and we're going to continue that on into the next year. And then just a quick update on our 2025 STAR and EOC early data file release. So that is the very early file, and it's to help campuses start making educational planning decisions, i.e. summer school accelerated instruction. You will see that we performed at 81% approaches, 59% meets, and 29% masters. That masters is up 2% from the prior year. So I wanted to highlight that. And then just kind of breaking it down so you can see where by grade band. This is all tests, all grade levels. So we combined all of the high school EOCs together, all the intermediate assessments and all elementary, and kind of did another dive into those. And you'll see where our movement is. And again, we saw increases in that master's performance from the prior year.
The next slide talks about our goal for TSI, which is Texas Success Initiative. This is part of the CCMR process. Our goal was to increase those benchmarks in English and math from 75 for the 24 graduates to 77 for the 25 graduates. Happy to report that they hit the mark at 82.6% this past year. Just want to remind everyone, this is a part of CCMR. There's many components in which to earn the CCMR credit. This is the TSI part, which consists of TSI 2, ACT, SAT, and the college prep math course, which is part of our Texas College Bridge program that we implement within our curriculum. And so this is our students performing at specific levels at those assessments and work to earn that Texas Success Initiative and the CCMR. We don't have our CCMR scores finalized as of yet, but we are anticipating that they will be higher, slightly higher than the previous year. Of course, that adds in the AP and the IB opportunities, dual credit, as well as associate's degree, military, industry-based certifications, and some of our special ed students who have IEPs that count towards CCMR as well. So we're excited about that growth overall in CCMR. And just to remind everybody that it's 1 year lag on accountability. So as accountability comes out, just know that this is for the 24 graduates, not the 25 graduates. So it's a 1 year behind all the each year. So I just want to make sure I put that plug in there. Dr. Henley always reminds me of that. It's not this year, frankly. But super excited. The work that each high school and each administrative team, as well as the teachers and students did was fantastic to not just surpass this mark, but really blow it out of the water. They did hard work and it paid off. So super excited.
Speaking of hard work.
Hard work by everyone, and a measurement that matters in so many ways, for engaging instruction, for culture, for just our general health of our schools and our campuses, and it impacts a lot of things that Ms. Benz and I talked about earlier too, and as far as our average daily attendance, we are so proud. And Dr. I guess the joke around the table has been that last year we were right under 95%. We're pushing for that since our post-COVID, and I was not allowed to round up, was I? so they're letting me say that we really got a 95, but it was based on Mr. Moses' work with the high schools and resetting their calendars and looking at that and their graduation dates and making sure their attendance matched up. And we can happy to say that 95% was spot on for our students and 95.6 for our teachers. Branch, that's exciting. But this is a testament to a lot of work across the district, from our front offices to our classrooms to you've been a part of it too, of celebrating the success of parents bringing their kids to school, and it's a mark of healthiness in our organization, and we don't take it lightly. So we're really proud of making this mark without having to round. Yes.
The next slide addresses some metrics again in the number 2 goal there. Develop a P-TECH program for biomechanics and health sciences, a clear horizons for the 25-26 school year. We have 30 students enrolled in that for the upcoming year. This past 2 weeks ago, they had their bridge camp right after school was out, and all 30 students showed up for the P-TECH program. They were together with the early college 125 students. And then the second part of the day, they broke away, and the 30 of them went over to HCA and got to do some of the clinical stuff that they'll be doing throughout this whole program. So super excited about this new initiative and what it will bring to our district and to those specific students. The second bullet there, adopt the process for chartering and executing exploration goals. This will be something you'll hear about later in the summer. We've had those exploration teams. If you remember, we had housing for employees that had an exploration team. We did the STREAM initiative, which we have presented to you guys. There's also work being done in virtual learning, dual credit, different exploration topics that you'll be hearing more about as the summer progresses. So just wanted to let you know that we've kind of adopted that process and continue to explore opportunities for our district and most of all for our students. And then finally, student survey data from the first year of the 6th grade launch course. Very successful launch of launch. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Silva to share more data.
Successful, yes. Great feedback from teachers and parents and students. You might remember mid-year, we shared a little bit of survey data, and here's just a tiny capture of the end of the year survey data from students. So there were some questions that we asked, and these are just two. Because a big portion of the launch course and the purpose was for them to better understand what's out there as far as when I grow up, what I might want to be when I grow up, and what matches with me, my skills and my personality and all those things about me. So understanding yourself a little bit better as a person, and then what might match me. And so you can see that this was throughout the year. So you can see a 12% increase in the strongly agree, but about 93% of students said that I understand, I have an understanding of my skills and which careers might be a good match for me, which is great to already be thinking about when you're in the 6th grade. So that was some positive results. And finally, another big piece of our work in CCISD, as you know, we set wildly important goals. That's a piece of leader in me. That also the ownership. When a student owns the goal instead of the teacher, and it moves from the teacher to the student, students grow more academically. And so it's important for us to be able to help them learn how to do that, and then for them to do that on their own. And so one of the ways that we capture the goals is through Skyward, and they learned how to do the goal setting in Skyward in the fall in the launch course. So you see a great increase in the always. I'm always setting goals, 26% from the beginning of the year to the later in the year as they got used to doing that. And so our goal is for students to be able to know their goals and their academic goals and other goals so that they can track their progress and meet those goals. So there's a couple pieces of data from the very successful launch of the launch course.
And before you go, I did want to go back to that previous slide, if you don't mind, the one with the P-TECH, because I don't know that. So our goal was a P-TECH program for biomechanics and health sciences, but we didn't move forward with the biomech because San Jacinto wasn't quite. You want to explain that?
Yeah, whenever we started talking to them about that tripod of a partnership with them and another entity, they didn't feel comfortable in that third entity for that, as well as just their staffing for those courses and creating those courses. They felt very comfortable in the health science realm, but they've agreed to explore that opportunity for the biomechanics moving forward. So next year will be, that group of 30 is just really the health science component of the P-TECH.
Okay, I just thought we did have that goal, but we were not able to move forward with it.
Right.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Green.
Oh, yeah. And looking at metric 2.5 on slide 26, it includes increasing the perception of quality education provided by our staff from 87% to 90% on the 2025 CCISD performance survey, which is taken by staff, parents, and teachers. So we didn't quite round up to 90, but we did meet thank you, Holly. We did meet that measure by 89%. Of staff, parents, and students felt the perception of quality education was there. But when you couple this information with what Dr. Ingalls shared on that Intergauge, with that plus 10 over 2 years, I would surmise that, yes, we have met that measure for sure by our teachers and our staff in thinking about that. But some of the information that rose from that survey as far as highlights and high satisfaction included a high quality education, in engaging lessons, special programs like gifted and talented, dual language and advanced placement, and also our college and career readiness options. Areas for improvement that we should look at and continue to make some progress would be an over-reliance on technology and screen time in the classroom, and also timely communication about academic progress in response to parent concerns. So that's something for us all to be cognizant of and making some improvements there.
And then finally, our last goal, CCISD will cultivate innovation through strategic collaboration and responsive organizational stewardship. And we start off talking with Ms. Benzai, and this will just be a briefing, and then we'll continue this conversation this summer.
So create a long-range financial stability plan to balance the budget by 26-27. We've taken several steps in the past 2 years to create financial stability, mainly the voter-approved tax rate election in 2023, and all the way down to attendance initiatives that we've had that brought that rate up to 95%. That's taken a lot of work, but that all helps out with the bottom line. As you'll see in upcoming meetings that we'll start having soon, we ended our fiscal year 2024 with a fund balance of 23% or 2.8 months of operating expenditure. So that's we're in a good ended it there in a good place. We continue to manage our staffing. So when we're using those demographic studies to forecast our enrollment, we're look closely at our staffing every spring, as we did again this year, and making reductions as needed. We've been able to do that through attrition to keep our staffing in line with our student enrollment declines. We're determining the impact of the legislation. You just saw the presentation, so we can see, we'll see where we land with that. But really over this summer, we'll be bringing to you options to balance the budget and the next steps that we need to create a balanced budget. So those will be several options that we'll have on ways to do that.
And metric 3.1 also included increasing the number of educators participating in the National Board Certification Teacher Program through a new system of district supports. And we are excited to report that Cohort 2 is beginning their work in just a couple of weeks. Actually, Dr. Moses and the mentor team were working today to develop the plans for those first cohort professional learning meetings. Cohort 1 participants, of course, it's a 2-year program, so they've completed year 1 and they're moving into year 2. And we're excited to report that 100% of those cohort members made their submissions, which of course every year in the 2 years, there are 2 submissions. There'll be an additional 2 submissions later on in this coming school year, where that will determine whether or not they become certified as NBCT. So they are making progress. We're making progress toward this goal. We're excited about that. And of course, we reported throughout the year some updates. We did learn in December that we had 4 additional teachers who received that designation. And so we're excited about that.
And then what I'm going to do, Ms. Polson was going to share this, and since Abadi Carnitas is really the brains behind both of these, we're going to let you share. Yes.
I'm happy to. Okay, so these next 2 data points, they're pretty exciting because it's really bringing our community connections to life. And so there's 2 ways that we're doing that under this, this item. So Get My Interns is going to be the tool that's going to finally marry and bring together those mentees and mentors under our independent study mentorship program. So this is going to be semi-automated. It's going to be really just so much easier for our students who are in that program to connect with mentors in their area of interest in industry. So we just purchased the system after we had a team together that evaluated several platforms, many of them good, but we found the right one that really was just the sweet spot for what we're looking for in CCISD. So it's really exciting. We are launching this school year, but just to kind of let you know how that phased approach is working. For the fall, it's going to be the part of the program that will help just manage the mentorship that's already happened, because those students are already finding their mentors this summer. So we missed the boat just a little bit, but what's going to be great is we get to kind of phase in and have them use it to shepherd through the attendance and their performance. So they're going to be in there and match. And in the spring, we're actually going to be able to help make, that's the season, we call it seasons of mentorship, help again identify the mentors and match them with those that are seeking those mentorships. So it's going to get very robust as we go and build, and we're very excited about that one. And then, so the second is Care Portal. We wanted to put this under here because, again, it's just a great win-win under our community partnerships, and this is a branch off of our Interfaith Collaborative that has really bared fruit. I mean, we think so. Our faith-based partners were very hungry to do more for our schools. They're already doing so much, but they sense and know that there's greater need out there, but they didn't know how to help. And so our social work service providers do a great job helping onesies and twosies here and there throughout the year. But what we were finding is that there were some needs that were just going unmet because you've just kind of tapped out some of your resources. And so Enter Care Portal, it's been wonderful. We launched this year. Please know when you see this number that it's important to note that these were those higher unmet needs, right? So that's why the number's a little low, because there's needs being met every day on every campus and through our social work service providers. So Care Portal's been a great win-win. We've had many of our churches get on board. We've done training. We've done 4 trainings now with them to learn how to use the portal, to register as a responder, and community champions that can also help with those needs. So that's been also just very, very exciting. I think I might do that. Are you taking this one? I can't.
Well, I will jump in here, Dr. Engel,
We'll
if that's
let you do,
okay.
because elementary has blossomed with this.
I think in one of our survey responses, when our staff feels like they've been well communicated, they were well informed, it has a lot to do with our implementation of Parent Square, and I'm grateful for the Department of Technology and Communication. It was going to be a slow pilot year in which we were slowly going to implement, and we were just going to start with the phasing out of one product and changing over to another, and our teachers, our staffs, our school went full steam ahead, and truly all schools all our schools, elementary schools I know, and our campuses are using the Parent Square, and 84% of our parents say that it's effective in this first year, and this was our pilot year. Is that fair?
We launched in September.
We launched in September, not even in August and not in July. So it was a rapid response, once again, with technology. Thank you, Justin, too, for supporting us. But this has been one of the things when I know we're on campuses that we hear, and we heard from listening sessions that this is one of the factors that everyone feels most informed by the unified communication that's coming through the CCISD connector, Parent Square.
And if I can just add to that the Staff Square component will be launching this summer. So that's employee-to-employee communications and interdepartmental.
All right, and this one is our last one for this report. As you recall, in April of '24, you guys approved changes to policy BQ local, which talked about program evaluation, and it established district definitions that would guide how we conducted program evaluations as a district. And just as a little memory jog, we have full-scale program evaluations, we have program gauges and program reviews. So that is all been finalized. We have a clearinghouse thanks to Dr. Henley and her team. We completed 7 this year, and those are the ones that are listed for you. And we've shared those in our weekly updates to you as we've gone through the year. So we're super grateful for her team to take on this big challenge.
And that concludes. I know we had a lot to share, so we appreciate your patience as we went through it, but tried to get different people to provide that information. So at this time, that concludes our goals update. So questions, comments?
Absolutely. So I will open it up to the board. Mr. Cunningham.
Go ahead. Mr. President, not really questions, but more comments as we were going through the presentation. In terms of the survey and some of the results from the survey, I wrote down people, purpose, and promise because that's where it all starts. When we talk about attendance, and I'm glad that was in there, that was huge to raise that. I think it was 92.8% or something. We were right at 93, not rounding up. But to get that number to 95, I don't think people understand the work that goes into that, especially as you look at other districts that are trying to get to 93 or 94, percent. And, you read about them in the news, and I'm sitting there going, wow, so that's huge. And then underneath that, I wrote the increase in, our national board certification for our teachers is a reason why you're seeing teachers showing up to school and putting forth their effort. And then I went down, as Dr. Silva was talking, world-class learning. So a lot of people don't know, but Ms. Jackson and Ms. Freeze, that science workshop with Mr. Paul Anderson, but it's not necessarily the workshop itself, it's what he said. Ahead of the curve in transforming science instruction through 3D learning. And underneath that, I wrote, you can't have world-class education without world-class teaching.
Yeah.
So that's important. And then Paul, another thing, thank construction, maintenance, all staff. Graduation went off without a hitch. And the work that goes into, having to clean the facilities and things of that nature. So once again, they did a fantastic job. But also thank you, because a lot of people don't realize the work that goes behind the scenes. So the reunification drill, the praise that you gave to particular individuals, Holly Hughes and Dr. Staley, on the work that they did, that's what creates the atmosphere. That's what creates the safe and secure. That's what creates, the teamwork to make it happen. And you just modeled that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee County Hammond. Well said. Anyone else?
I just wrote down I have a lot of acronyms to learn.
We need a glossary.
I know. I wrote down all the ones I didn't know.
You'll get there.
You'll get there. Darn, I want to know now.
Anyone else? Anything else want to offer?
Well, I don't want to come across as too negative here, because I know that I do appreciate all the good work that has gone into you're really making some of these numbers very impressive. And so if I pick a nit here or there, please do not take that out of proportion. But there are just a couple of thoughts I had as I went through this. One thing I noticed is the chart that said 82% of our teachers are getting the behavior support that they need, and that's great. But that means there's 18% where we have an opportunity for improvement there. And I would really like to see a little bit more in that area as we go through the year. I think I certainly hear a lot of feedback from parents in that area, and I hope we're doing everything that we need to do there. So I'll just simply throw that out there, and maybe that's something we can all work on together as we go through the year. But I mean, I appreciate that we've gotten to where we've gotten on that. There was another thing. This has been an ongoing problem for everybody in Texas, and that is we measure student outcomes in terms of academics through STAR. And everybody in this room knows STAR is imperfect. And so that's why we do things like Amplify, and we take other measures to help us kind of orient ourselves through that process so that we don't just get one number at the end that really doesn't mean as much as it really could mean. And so my question as a systems guy, and I think I'm seeing some numbers here that support that, but what my real question is are we chasing the right thing? In other words, do the measures that we're using, do the results we see there correlate well to changes we see in STAR? In other words, are they good predictors of STAR performance? If anyone here wants to address that, I'd love to hear it.
So
I'll clarify a little bit about Amplify specifically.
Okay.
So I think the high priority learning, I'm going to switch now and talk about high priority learning growth measures for just a second, but those are in the STAR grades, and we are seeing some correlation between the assessments we're doing with the high priority learning growth measures and STAR in the 3 to 8 and then the EOCs. But switching back to Amplify is a little bit different. So Amplify shares about how students are learning to read. So it doesn't necessarily test comprehension, which is what STAR tests. But what we know is if they learn how to read and can, K1 and 2, and so our Amplify gives us the data we need to ensure that we can intervene as appropriate about, do they understand letters and sound correlations? Do they understand how to break apart words? Do they know how, to physically read? And so there's all these foundational skills which we teach in those lower grades in an effort to make sure our students know how to read, because we say in K1 and 2 you learn to read, in 3+ you read to learn, and so we need them to be able to read by the time they get to 3rd, so they will be able to comprehend and infer and all of those things about text. So it's a little bit of a different, but required to get to the STAR you want, right?
Right.
Does that, I don't know if that helps you with
That helps quite a bit. And one final comment I wanted to make is, I noticed that we're focusing maybe a little, I get the impression, I don't know if this is true or not, but I get the impression we're focusing a little bit more on mastery than we have in the past. And I never really thought of it that way, but if we are, I think that incorporating things that maybe in the past were more reserved towards GT and pulling that into the mainstream and challenging more mainstream students to think at a higher level, I think is going to be very, very productive. And I'm really looking for good things there.
That is exactly what we're trying to do. Even pulling those GT teachers into the PLC with the gen ed teachers and having those conversations to support that. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Larson. Anyone else? Anything else to offer? All right. So I will say that echoing everything that Trustee Cunningham said about thanking the staff and everybody that's behind the scenes to help make all these things happen. I made several notes, but without going into all the detail, one of my notes says it's about putting the right people in the right place with shared goals. And I think that is everybody in this room, right? The board and the cabinet, whether it's a policy or, a goal that we put out with people, purpose, promise in mind. I think, we need to remember to thank ourselves, at times. It's kind of hard to do, especially, we try to elevate everybody else around us. Thank the support staff and thank them for all their hard work, but everybody in this room, really helped make this happen. And so whether the goal is to get from that 18% of the teachers that, don't feel like they have that support, that's fine. We make that goal and everybody in this room helps make it happen. And so, I think it's great. I think we're doing wonderful things with this district and we'll just keep doing it. So, anybody else have anything else to offer? No? All right. With that, we don't have a closed session. So, at 6:18, meeting's adjourned.